Well, hello there, garden friends. Nice for you to make it. In my last video, I talked about how sunflowers are such an amazing plant to have in your summer garden, but guess what? Summer's at an end. They are maturing, and it's time to do something with those blossoms. Now, plenty of them have been left out for the birds and the bees to enjoy, but now that as they're, some of those I want to keep for ourselves. So I like to, we're gonna maybe hopefully roast some so we can nibble on some for ourselves to eat. But I also want to save some to plant for next year, and then of course save some so that way we can fill up our bird feeders throughout the season to keep our little feathered friends happy. But for us, like I said, sunflowers are such an amazing plant to grow. There's many varieties to choose from. We grew some that were knee-high, all the way to these monsters up here, and they're absolutely beautiful, and they've done such an amazing job at providing, some food and forage for some wildlife, the birds and the bees. Birds and the bees, they've been loving it, and so I've been feeling good about that. Like I said, I want to keep some for myself. I'm a little selfish for sure. But in today's video, we're going to talk about how and when to harvest them, and maybe a little bit about how to store those seeds, which is honestly super easy. It's barely an inconvenience. Shout out pitch meeting, guy's so funny. So up here behind me, you can see this beautiful flower that is in full bloom. It's one of the last sunflowers that we have. I think this is a Mongolian giant. Which, as you can see, lives up to its name. They're huge, big, really tall ones. I think we grew some mammoths, some giants, and a few other varieties as well. And so this one is in full bloom. It's looking really good, but you can see its petals are still beautifully yellow, and they're moist, and they're lush, and it's a beautiful blossom. Now I'm going to show you some examples close up here of what it looks like when one's finished. And really, you're looking for all those petals on the outside to be dried up. And a fun fact on sunflowers, they are these mixtures. One blossom is actually made up of hundreds of individual blossoms. All those little flowers on the inside that, when they get pollinated, create a seed. Those are all individual blossoms. And then even the petals on the outside themselves are a primitive form of a flower themselves, although they're lacking parts. Let's not get into that, but it's really cool. So sunflowers are really amazing plants when you look at them from different directions and perspectives. And so I'm going to show you some that are fully dried. All those petals on the outside that are normally, when in full bloom, are lush and moist, and you can if you feel them, they're going to be soft, almost like a rose petal. Once those all dry up like crispy boogers on a windy day, then that's one good indicator. And like I said, I'm going to show you some close-ups, and then when you start seeing the back side of that head turn yellow, go from green to yellow, maybe even get pitted with a little bit of tannin brown spots around there, you really want to be patient. I've made the mistake in the past of harvesting my sunflower heads a little too early to where I get plenty of good seeds, but then some of them aren't fully developed, and then maybe there might be a little too much moisture in there, and so as they dry, I can get issues. So we don't want that. We want them fully dry. We're going to cut them back and leave about a foot of a good handle on that sucker, so that way we can tie them up, we can hang them a little bit. We're gonna dry them out even further. Some of them might be ready to kind of knock those seeds loose, and we're gonna collect them. Really, it's all about keeping them dry, keeping them clean, keeping them cool, and away from all the heat and the moisture, all those things that are gonna harm those seeds and keep them from being viable and useful. We're gonna take care of that. So let's take a closer look right now before there's any adus to be furthered. Let's go. So here's a pretty clear example of a finished head right here. You can see how the backside is starting to get this discoloration. It's quite a bit yellow and pale. It's lost a lot of that green, lush, deep color. Like I said, all this pitting in here. And then if you look at the front, we've kind of already, the students have kind of peeled off all the petals because they've been dry for a while. You can see right in here how the seeds kind of form in there. It's really cool. And they can tuck kind of in, and they just pull right out with a little, if you can just give it a little touch and they pop right out, it's probably time to harvest. So like I said, so what I'll do is just get my handy dandy pruners, give it about, 8 inches to a foot or so on that handle. That way you have something to tie them off to, which is helpful. You can always cut some off. It's harder to add it back on, right? Boom. Just like that, that one's in there. And then we'll bring that one inside, and we'll hang it up. Now, let's go take a look some more. So here's one, probably not quite as far along as the other one, but still probably pretty close. And you can see the difference. Most are fully formed on the outside. You can see even some birds and some students been nibbling on this. Somebody has, probably the students and me. We like to nibble on them. But you can see the interior ones, sometimes they don't get fully formed. You can see the seeds are a bit smaller there towards the center. But the outer ones look pretty good. I can give this one a little longer, or I could bring it in. It's, the choice is yours. But as you can see, it's really simple to do. easy. And then the next step is gonna be us just tying them up in an area where they can stay cool and dry, and then we'll knock those seeds loose. And I'll kind of show you what that looks like here in a second. Oh yeah, so here's another good example right here. So nice big head. Oh, ooh, look at that one just snapped right off. Oh, I don't know my own strength. But yeah, the petals are all dry. You can see all the seeds in there formed up, and that back side of that head is telling you, I am done. So not a bad haul from the garden. You can see we've got a considerable amount here, and although there's several blossom heads still out in the garden that are finishing up, we are just pushing it for the season. These plants were just getting big and gangly, and they were overhanging and falling over on each other, so it was time to get them harvested. Now, it's always a balance on when to harvest. Too early, the seeds aren't developed enough. Too late, and they're so developed and so loose, you get situations like this where just a little bit of disturbance and they just fall right out, or the birds get to them, or in my case at home, the squirrels and the rats have gotten to them a bit. At least that's what I'm thinking. Maybe in a mixture with the birds as well, but right now we're looking pretty good, so it's time to get these dressed up. We're gonna pull off any of these excess leaves here. Like you can see, we left a handlebar on these, and so that'll allow us to do is to tie them together in small little clusters and hang them up somewhere where they're out of the direct sun, they're away from moisture, and they have a little bit of airflow so they can dry out, finish curing, and then we can get them over to processing. So after you've dried, hung and dried your blossoms there, they're ready to rock. And so what I did is I grabbed an old tray, and this is a step you can do a number of different ways. You can use burlap, you can use cardboard or newspaper or whatever. You just want to use paper towels even. Just have a nice clean piece of paper over a tray here so we can collect these. You can see some seeds have already fallen. So I'm just going to show you, once you have it's really dried out. So here's a head that I've had kind of drying a little longer than the ones you just saw, the ones we just harvested. So this one's ready to rock, and you can see that just with a little bit of pressure, these seeds just jump right out of here. And so some people, you can like smash them together. I like to rub my hands over them, and you can see they come right out. So if you have a little helper in your garden, big or small, it's good to get some hands out there and then just a little bit of manipulation. And I'm doing this one-handed. So imagine if you had two hands, you can go even quicker. But this is also a really good indication that the seeds are dry, that they're done. And so you can actually, some people will at this stage will, they'll dry them out or whatever, they'll get them all loose, and then you can put them in a colander or a strainer, and you can wash these, and that'll help wash away any dirt or grime, potentially any pathogens potentially that might be on there, and just clean them up. But make sure that if you do that, you got to be really sure that you dry them properly right after that, because if these are really wet and then they kind of just pile up here, they're not going to be super happy, and then you'll get, so you want to spread them all out. And I'm actually going to cut this paper, so right now it's kind of making it go into a bowl. So I'm going to cut it so it lays flat, so I can spread these seeds out. I may wash some and do some experimenting with the students, and then some I may not wash, because you don't have to. Really depends what you're going to do with them. Some of these, like I said, are going to be bound for the roaster, and we will bake them, and I've seen some recipes online, really easy to do if you want some fresh baked, not pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, although I love baked pumpkin seeds too. But you can see these ones just popping out, just with a little bit of pressure. It's actually quite satisfying, oddly enough. But I would say the trick to actually doing it is, here, I'll show you some that I just brought in and I just hung up. So now, usually I'll use string or whatever, but I had some old super ties. You can see here an aquaponics system here. And so these are the ones I just brought in, a few of them, although I have plenty more to go. I'll show you the haul at the end, how many we have. And this is a couple, so I'm just hanging them up. I do have a fan back here that blows some air from the bottom, and there's some airflow around here. I've noticed that if I put them somewhere, even though they're indoors, even if it's kind of a dry location, if it doesn't have good airflow, they'll get like moldy on the back, and you'll see some mold. You can even get mold on the front potentially, and some rot, but I'll see a lot of it on the back. These ones just got brought in, so you're not gonna see any. But airflow is really important. So just a light, breeze in the area can be very helpful, because you don't want them to, to get all funky and molded up as you're drying out. To me, that is one of the bigger issues, is just keeping them consistently dry and getting that airflow over them, so that way they never get funky. So here was a great example of one of our blossoms that we have now harvested. It was dry enough to get the seeds out. They popped right out. You can see all the different individual pockets where every single seed was, where every single pocket you see, there was a blossom right there. There was a flower attached to this big old beautiful flower head. Love it. And so you can see what we've come up with It's actually, this accumulated a lot. So I wanted to show kind of a laugh a little bit with you. The majority of these seeds came from these Mongolian giants that we planted. This is one seed packet that we had, a pretty good sized seed packet. Just a great one from Botanical Interests. And so you can see just one seed packet. And this actually, the funny part is you can see all these beautiful seeds we got. And check this out. So we popped them out. They're pretty dry for the most part, but we're gonna kind of let them, you know, finish out drying on here a little bit. I'm gonna stir them up a little bit, make sure we got airflow to them. And then once they're really fully dry, you can actually feel a little bit of moisture still just in here. So we're gonna stack these up, put them somewhere where they'll be out of the way, but still have plenty of chance to dry out nice and slowly, but efficiently. Because we don't want any mold to build up or anything funky, because we want to be able to store some of these. Some we're gonna roast, some we might use for microgreens, some we're gonna plant, some we'll feed to the birds. So there's so much we can do with them, but I'm really looking forward to, I've already been cracking them and eating them fresh already. So I'm looking forward to maybe getting washed, you know, salted, roasted in the oven. I think I've seen about an hour or so, give or take, from 250 degrees. I think I've seen a lot of people do, so we'll see. Longer if you want it more crispy, but for us, this has been fantastic. Like I said, this is all from one seed packet. And the funny part is there's still plenty of blossoms that are just as big as this one outside. So this is probably 75% of what we are going to harvest, and it all started with just one seed packet and maybe a couple dozen seedlings. So really impressive. I mean, look at all these seeds, and it was really cool to see some of the heads, even though they were all from the same package, produced seed heads that were just really, really dark, whereas others were quite a bit lighter in comparison. So all look really good, but you can see they are jumbo in size. So these ones are nice and meaty. We've been eating with the kids. Like I said, I'm looking forward to maybe roasting some, cracking some, and getting after it. But hey, if this doesn't convince you by now how awesome sunflowers are, I don't know what will. I really appreciate if you've been watching this long. Thank you so much. Please be sure to like, share, subscribe, and all the great stuff. We'd love to have you back for more garden adventures. Until next time, garden friends, happy gardening to you all. And of course, never stop growing. We'll see you in the next one.